Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Normie Recertification Training here in our Zoom room. We are glad to see you here. Just making some final adjustments on some of our screens. I want to welcome everybody in our social media platforms and video platforms that are joining us tonight. And we have a special welcome for Kick.com. We've added another social video platform over the weekend. We got that up and running. So we actually have some interested followers there already. So it's kind of interesting to see how quickly that spread. So welcome everybody out there on Kick and all the other platforms. And welcome admin people I see coming into the room here. Glad to see you all popping in. I know we got a bunch of others out there running some classes today. We got class going down in Sunrise, Florida, in the Fort Lauderdale area. We got quite a few on site and even a larger crew online with this class. So pretty big event down there. So those instructors will not be with us tonight unless they decide to pop in, tired as they will be. So with that said, I just want to look at a few things real quick here. I had some notes that I wanted to talk about. We did welcome the Kick group, so kick.com. And again, if any of you want to know any of the platforms that we're on, you can always go to normie.org. At the top of the page, when you're there, you'll see Normie TV in the menu. When you click on that, it'll show you our upcoming schedule. It'll also show you all the different platforms that we are broadcasting on, especially for these recertification trainings. Additionally, at the bottom of that page, you'll see a list of, I believe, 8 or 9 podcast platforms that we are also putting our media on. And that number we expect to grow quite a bit in the near future. So we'll have more announcements on that, hopefully within the next week or so. All right, well, I see this is about it for admin that's coming in the room. So I'm going to get started. I do want to mention a few things about how this is going to work tonight, because tonight is one of our special training nights. We do on the first and third Tuesday of the month, when we do our recertification training, we will do a special product training after our regular session. So for those of you that are watching on the social platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, or any of those others, including Kick, which is now part of our broadcasting, we will be shutting down those feeds at the end of this public section. If you are a Normie member and you want to take part in the product training that will be coming up, you must go to impact.normie.org. Just a word of warning, if you're not an active Normie member, it's not going to let you log in, but you're going to miss the training if you don't go there and you are an active Normie member. So I think we've covered all the where you need to be and when things. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to start off on the public section. We're going to show an interview that was just done, and I want to give thanks to Jeff Cross from CleanFacts. He has shared the feed with us for this, and we really appreciate that. Doug Hoffman, our executive director, was part of that interview discussion. So it is definitely something that is personal to us here at Normie. And we feel that it's something very valuable and you need to hear it. And you're going to hear from other industry experts talking about that. When that is over, we may have a short discussion on it. We'll see how the room goes and what kind of input there is. And after that, we do have some explanations coming up about some upcoming training. There was a little bit of confusion from people because we have so many different classes going. We just want to clarify some of the listings for everybody. And this is open to the public also. After that, we will be shutting down the feed and then going into our product training in our Zoom room at impact.normie.org. All right, everybody. Well, I want to thank all the admin people for being here and standing by. I am going to shut my video down and my mic, so I think they'll all do the same, and we'll get the presentation started. Roger, just let me know if you see any issues. Other than that, we'll be back shortly. Sit back and watch. This is going to be the cleaning industry IAQ experts. They're going to analyze the CDC's ventilation guidance target announcement that just came out. And that was a mouthful. I wanted to make sure I got all the wording right on that. But you'll see how they explain it, and it gets pretty into detail. So stand by, everybody.
The mission of the CDC is to save lives and protect people from health threats. It accomplishes this through science. And one move recently that demonstrates this, actually making history, is when the CDC announced an update to its ventilation guidance on preventing indoor transmission of the virus that causes COVID-19. Yet, is this just about COVID-19, or is there a bigger issue here to talk about? So we're going to go to our experts on this. Today, I'm with Patricia Ollinger, the Executive Director of GBAC, and my co-host on this episode of BioTalk. Also, Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner, the Senior Director of GBAC, and Doug Hoffman, the Executive Director of NORMI. We have some experts here today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Good to be here.
So let's get some thoughts from each of you. And Patty, as my co-host, let's start with you. When you heard this news, what were your thoughts?
We've been expecting this for a while now, and it's not just CDC. It was ASHRAE coming out with new ventilation standards for the built environment. WHO updated a lot of theirs for indoor air pollutants, and we're seeing this across the world on what we need to be doing for healthier indoor air and healthier spaces inside. So it was a, no pun intended, but a breath of fresh air to see these. But I think that this is just the first step to other things that need to happen, because now that we have them, now what? How do we use them is going to be the important questions to answer.
Good. Gavin, how about you? What were your thoughts when this was announced?
Oh, I think it's important to consider, Jeff, that we may be on the verge of something amazing here. Something that can be measured, can be articulated, that people can be educated and made aware of. And we're not creating a problem just to stay in business. We're creating a problem because indoor air is just not measured in public spaces, let alone in our homes. And I think what's so significant about coming out of a 3-year pandemic where we didn't really have specific measurements or specific standards that we could measure against, and everyone's confused. Everyone's talking about indoor air quality. So right now, that lack of accountability that we've all had across society, not just in our profession, in our cleaning industry, but understand that if I said to someone, did you improve ventilation, is really not the question I want to ask. The question I want to ask is, did you improve air quality by a specific amount? And with these standards from, say, CDC or the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers, ASHRAE, that puts us on that pathway of being able to measure.
Right. Well, thank you, Gavin, for that. And Doug, we have Gavin and Patty who represent ISSA. You're with NORMI. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have a large building background. And so when I read things like this, I have a couple of concerns. One thing is I don't want people to get the impression that there's a silver bullet to this issue, which I think kind of underscores what Dr. Gavin said. It's a multi-faceted problem. It needs a multi-strategic solution. And so that's one thing that concerns me. The other thing is how practical are these solutions in terms of doing them? What's the actual cost involved? I think there's some misunderstanding about that. But I think as long as you take a holistic approach, it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I don't have a lot of concerns about what they've done. I just think it needs to be done in a holistic way. As Dr. Gavin said, the bottom line is you've got to be able to evaluate pre and post. What have I done to be able to improve the environment, and can I quantify that?
Okay, good thoughts. And any of us can chime in as you'd like. But here's another question I had. I was thinking when this was announced, what does this really mean for the industry? What's it gonna do? Any thoughts there?
Well, I think as Gavin had indicated, one thing is that we finally have some targets. I do need to, actually chime into what Doug was saying, because this is not a one size fits all. And that's a concern that I have, as we, have talked before, Jeff, is that, I always get minimum 5. 5 air changes per hour. Why? I mean, you know, having been on a lot of design projects for buildings and laboratories, it's always why? Why do we need to have 5 air changes? What does that mean? With laboratories, what they did is they had an arbitrary number of 10 for many, many years. And then to change that, what does that mean? And can we achieve that? And it really comes down to, you know, one thing that they didn't, that I guess I was disappointed in what was sent out, was they didn't really indicate the monitoring. And what Gavin had said is that measuring, we can measure now. We've got so many really unique tools that are now available that have come more on the market here recently in the last couple of years through COVID, to be able to measure and monitor real time indoor air quality. That's great. And then you can then start putting in, and it's really a layered effect. What is it that we're trying to accomplish, and understand what parameters are there that are going to affect your indoor air quality, starting to better understand.
Okay.
I was going to back up a little bit behind that if I could for a second, Jeff, and that's just talking about 5 air exchanges. And I agree 100%. I mean, that's a number, but the reason that you can get there is when you've properly designed the HVAC system and utilizing technologies that are there right now. Unfortunately, there's a disconnect between the residential builder and the commercial builder. Commercial builders always utilize manual J's, manual D's to design systems that work properly. We don't always see that in residential. Commercial requires certain types of fresh air makeup, ERVs, HRVs. You don't always see that in the residential side of it. So I think it really, from a design standpoint, it absolutely can be done, but there has to be some changing in the thinking of the industry, I think, for the building side, to make sure that these houses are built correctly. And truthfully, when you put, they were talking about a MERV 13, you can't just go out and put a MERV 13 on every HVAC system that's out there, or you'll burn them up. I mean, it's got to be, it's got to be designed for the unit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, you mentioned residential. So what you don't know, Doug, is that a couple of years ago, we bought a house during the pandemic, sight unseen. And there was a lot of maintenance issues that needed to be put in place. Well, I have an air monitoring unit that's here at the house, and my numbers were really bad. And it's like going down that why we need to do that. And when the HVAC tech came the last time, I started asking him questions. Part of it was, what's my fresh air intake? You know, I asked all these questions, and he looked at me like I was, you know, who are you and why are you asking me these very technical questions? And he came back and he said, ma'am, you don't have fresh air intake. And he goes, this house was built prior to any requirements that required that. And I said, well, that explains one thing, because when I open up the windows, my numbers go better. And which I knew. But it's like, it's been a interesting, I would say, activity, and I'm not there yet, to look at what I can do and what affects my indoor air quality, whether it's cleaning, cooking, you know, painting the floor of my garage, different things have a very big impact on the quality of the air that I'm breathing in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Jeff, you can cut this out if you want. I'm not here to promote my book, but that was the purpose of mold-free construction. It was, how do I look at the house holistically and do the things that I need to do so that I can have an indoor air quality that's significantly better than how it would be otherwise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Doug's book on Amazon, only $1,000. Okay, we'll split the fee. So Gavin, let's get your thought before we move on. They said 5 air changes an hour. I don't know if you would go with that, if you'd like more or less, but it's all about what it does. I assume every building's different. 5 might work on one, maybe not another.
Yeah, it's just an important point, Jeff, and I just want to make sure everyone understands. I do have a signed copy of the Doug Hoffman book. The book I have a signed copy of is Stephen Johnson's book of How We Got to Now. And if you haven't got that book, read Stephen Johnson's book, How We Got to Now, because it explores the history of innovation in the last 200 years. It talks about what makes us our modern society, and it lists as one of the 6 factors cleaning and cleanliness as an innovation, as one of the 6 innovations that have developed our modern society. But that focused on surfaces. So that didn't focus on healthy indoor air. And I don't know where you sit or where you live, Jeff, but where I live, I've got a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector in all the rooms of my house. Why? It's the law, and I have to do it. It's building codes. I have to do it. But now we have technology. We talk about these numbers, which is a great place to start. But we have technology tools, things you can buy that are affordable, that we can actually monitor for indicators of indoor air quality. And it's a bit like, Jeff, if I came home and I saw water on the floor in my house, what's the first thing I'd do? I'd clean it up. Yeah, if I come home and I can't see the particles because I can't see the chemicals, I can't see the pollutants, the contaminants, the air, I do nothing because I'm not measuring it. Well, actually, I am. I've got 6 indoor air quality monitors in my house because that's what I do. And you can see it. They give me real-time information on things like carbon dioxide, temperature, humidity, particles, which are so important when it comes to infectious diseases, carbon monoxide, volatile organic compounds. I can measure that. What's really interesting, Jeff, is I can take my mobile phone right now and look at the weather app, and I get real-time data on what the outdoor air quality is in Washington, D.C., where I live. And if I didn't have the indoor air quality monitors, I wouldn't have a clue of what I'm breathing right now. But I do, because I have an indoor air quality monitor.
Yeah, good points. So some may say the CDC was a little tardy on this type of move because the announcement to go to this 5 air exchanges, when they made that announcement, it was the day after the U.S. ended its public health emergency for COVID. Were they a bit late? What do you think? Yeah.
Well, I think my personal opinion is that that they've been late in a lot of ways, not just them, but the EPA. I think the reality is that oftentimes these government agencies wait until they actually have to do something. In fact, what's interesting to me is that in the EPA world, in terms of indoor air quality, there's really been traditionally just 2 solutions. The solution to pollution is dilution, or the solution to pollution is remove the source. At least now what we're seeing with what the CDC is, they're actually talking about germicidal wavelength, UV, which is amazing. They're now talking about increased ventilation in a way that it actually means something, that it can be quantified. So I'm really happy that they've made this move. It may be a little too late, but it's maybe better for the next time.
Yeah, and actually interesting to even expand on that a little bit. Prior to joining ISSA and GBAC, I, for most of my career, have been managing environmental health and safety programs. And so, all aspects of EHS reported to me, and including the industrial hygiene group. And it's not uncommon in big organizations that you have, indoor air complaints. We have a stale building, we have a sick building, we have I think I'm being exposed to XYZ, and you go out, you do that evaluation, they do a visual inspection, and in the past it was you did that visual inspection, you look at temperature, humidity, you might check the HVAC parameters, what kind of air exchanges was I getting, even though there was no parameters to know what is it as designed, is it as built. If you thought that there might be a mold consideration, I'd call in somebody like Doug here to do some testing, or my team actually could do that initial testing as well. But we didn't have a lot of tools. And now what we're finding with these new air monitors with real-time monitoring, I can be sitting in my office, I get a complaint, and if I have something, I can be looking at what the CO2 levels are doing during that day, what's going on. And other countries have been pushing this a little bit further. Belgium, for example, in July, I believe it is, of this year, all bars and restaurants must have a visible indoor air quality monitor posted on the wall. and their commercial buildings will have to go to it. I believe it's by 2025. The UK is following suit. So we're seeing this movement, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. And I think that for healthy people, healthy buildings, this is going to be a big deal. The balance is going to have to be, we're going to need to do much better of understanding what it is that we're asking of these buildings and making sure that our green footprint doesn't get hurt in the meantime.
Mhm. So 5 air exchanges, let's say I own a 25, 30 floor building and I have to do something to it to comply. Are we talking about law here? And who pays? Like, is there going to be some government grants or funding, or is it just on me? Do we know that?
I think, Jeff, if it's your home, who cares? It's your home, so you're sitting in it.
True, but commercial
you
buildings.
live. Yep. So again, but you should have an indoor air quality monitor there to understand that. So you've just for yourself, health and well-being, and your family's well-being, that you're breathing healthy air.
Mm-hmm.
For public spaces and buildings, just like Patty said, there are countries that have taken this to the next level, which is where we need to go in societies to actually measure what's there. Yeah, it's great. There was so much confusion and lack of accountability over the last 3 years with the pandemic because we didn't have a number, didn't have a metric. Now we do. You've got to go back to, go back to the basics. Do you have an indoor air quality plan? And that's something that, again, ISSA, GBAC, Normie, we're all working on with many other partners in helping public spaces, hotels, airports, restaurants, schools, government buildings, non-government buildings, you name it, hospitals, come up with indoor air quality plans so they actually get a baseline. They get some data. That's easy to do. It's affordable to do. If you go back to the number that CDC published of May this year, it is historic. It's historic for one very big reason, is that we now have a ventilation target that addresses respiratory infectious diseases. And in my career, I think that's the first time that I've seen that ventilation target out there. But you can't have a ventilation target without doing 24/7 monitoring with baseline data, understanding how the air quality of the air does change as people move in and out, things move in and out of the indoor space.
Now, Jeff, I think that part of the answer to me about the money is actually education. And here's what I mean by that. When we built our house, I hired a mechanical engineer to design the HVAC system with a manual J and a manual D. I let it out to 3 contractors, 6 mechanical contractors to bid it. Only 3 bid it because the other 3 said it was 2 tons undersized. When things are built correctly, and you're looking at the house holistically, or you're looking at the commercial building holistically, managing indoor air quality is actually less expensive than having poor indoor air quality. And that, from my standpoint, is an education point that we probably need to figure out how to get into people's hands. But we helped a customer build a house in New Orleans right after Katrina, and it cost them 2% more to build the house the way it should have been built properly, and they got that money back in 2 years. So I don't think it's necessarily about the money as much as it is about understanding that you're actually doing the right thing, and that's going to save you money.
You know, the other thing I think that we need to think about is that more and more data is coming out that, and reports and talks on we are what we breathe. And I saw a talk by a physician, Dr. Mark Earth from the Mayo Clinic recently, and he gave a talk on we are what we breathe and showed a lot of different scientific data and medical outcomes for poor indoor air quality situations. Now, what we're finding is that when we are in situations of, you can call it a stale building, I think CDC referred to it as stale air, that cognitive, thought processes are not where they should be. We don't sleep as well. And we just don't function as well. And we're starting to recognize the correlation between poor health outcomes as well. And that's something that from a wellness standpoint, we really need to pay attention to, because it is something that we can't see. And if we don't monitor, it's easy to not look at it. So it's a layered, for me, it's a real layered solution, and that not one size fits all. So it goes back to what Doug was saying, is education is going to be really important here. And I think that we're going to see a lot of industries, whether it's education, HVAC, you name it, we're going to be able to pull together and really improve not just the industry, but also the health and well-being of individuals.
Jeff, we started years ago in 2004, and the environmentally sensitive individuals, the population was about 5 to 6%. That's now increased to almost 20%. And in the trainings that we do for environmentally sensitive individuals, what we find in most cases is those people have spent thousands of dollars on doctor's bills. And when in reality, if you can clean up their environment, it's going to be much better for them. As she said, it's absolutely true. We say this all the time. Either you have a good filter or you are a filter. So why not address it in the way that you can improve the indoor air quality?
I like that. Okay, well, we're about out of time. Any closing thoughts? What do you want people to do? Like if someone's watching this, if they made it all the way to the end of this interview, what should we do?
Everyone should understand, Jeff, where they spend most of their time during their life. And we know that, you just map it out. You live to the age of 80, you've probably spent 90% of your time indoors. That's 72 years out of your 80 years. And I think that right now we're reactionary to indoor air quality and healthy air. And that's not what we should be doing. We don't, we should be asking everyone the question, don't you want healthy indoor air all the time? And if the answer is yes, and we know we spend so much time indoors, then let's become actionable. Let's do something.
Yeah. Well, once I buy Doug's book, I'm going to be educated. So.
Well, I'm going to do you one better. We have a free class called IAQ Basics 101 that's completely free to the public, to the professional. It's a very short class, but it helps them understand how simple it really is to improve your indoor air quality. IAQ Basics 101. So maybe we can get that link out.
That's awesome.
Sounds like education again, more education.
And you give that course outdoors, don't you, Doug?
Yeah.
In some houses, yes.
I think that, Jeff, I think that it really is, education is really important. Also monitoring, the monitoring systems that are now available to us are coming down in price. And so what used to be unreachable sometimes for a lot of people are now becoming something that they're even talking about having units that can connect to your phone. I mean, literally be part of your phone in the future. But more importantly, I think that understanding that not one size fits all, and that we do need to get more educated, but that we've got a lot to learn. And as you know, Jeff, we're going to be working on a series of these kind of talks with different experts, and also papers and education to help explain to people what this means and how they can make sense. They don't have to read the calculations in the ASHRAE standard, but what it really means. And as we start moving forward in the built environment, whether it's commercial spaces or homes, the long term is to have healthier spaces. And we're on our way.
Well, let's all go outside and take a breath of fresh air. Before time sneaks up on us, as Gavin scared us a moment ago. Too much time indoors, but we do want the indoor air to be healthy. So thank you all for your time today.
Well, hopefully you were all able to see that. I think it was a really good interview. And we were listening to 4 people that are deeply invested in the indoor air quality and cleaning industries. So I want to thank all of them for their efforts and what they did here. I do have a few quick comments, though, about what I was watching. A few things. The term reactionary came up, and that is a symptom of being people. People don't normally do things proactively unless something is cueing them to make a change. And what I mean by that is, if you take a glass of water from your faucet and it's brown or really cloudy, you're not going to drink it. You're going to say, hey, there's something wrong. I want to get that fixed. But standing in the same room, when you take a deep breath, you can't see what's in the air you're breathing. If you can, it's a whole different level. I mean, if you can see the smoke and debris and dust that you're breathing in, there's a problem. But the majority of people are in environments where they cannot see what they're breathing in. And indoor air quality is a thing. Now, when COVID hit 3 years ago, it really brought an awareness to people that breathing is important. And I'm not saying that as a joke. It really became an item that people became very aware of, but they still don't understand what it means. People don't understand. On average, they take 20,000 breaths a day. That's a lot of breathing. I think it was like 3,000 gallons of air or something, some gigantic number that they're inhaling. Well, like Doug had said, you either have a good filter or you are one. Well, okay, but what does that mean? You watch the commercials on TV, and you run down to your local big box store and you get that $2 filter, which isn't doing anything for the air that you breathe. It may take some of the dog hair out of the air that'll clog the motor in the air handler, but it's not going to affect what you're breathing. So education was another point they brought up of how important it is to educate the public, the builders, and every piece along the chain that's involved with indoor air quality. The other thing that they talked a lot about, especially Patricia from GBAC, which is if I get this right, the Global Biorisk Assessment Council. It's a mouthful, but I think I got that right. And Gavin is also a big part of that. They talked about monitoring. And we completely agree with that. For those of you that have been with Normie for a while and following us, you know that we had launched a monitoring program a little over a year ago. Well, we've been working with the manufacturer, and we've gone through a very long, extensive beta program. And I really want to thank all of our members that were involved with that. But the manufacturers listened to us, and they're making final changes on the next version release of all the monitoring equipment and software. And the exciting part about that is we're looking at it from the indoor air quality aspect, not from the technical side of developing a product and getting it out to the market and sales. So by the two different sides working together, I think you're going to see something, I would say within the next 3 weeks, keeping my fingers crossed, becoming available to the public for this continuous monitoring in the new version. The older version is still out there, it's still functioning, and a lot of the equipment will be switching out as we go forward to the newer stuff. But it's all about progress and making things workable for the need that they are supposed to be providing. And what I mean by that is just throwing a monitor out there that's going to monitor things without really understanding the importance of it is like going for a blood test and getting back 8 pages of numbers that don't mean anything because they're just monitoring. Unless you're trained to understand it, you can't get any real information that's meaningful from that. So that's where we're going. The monitoring program, for those of you that have been involved with Normie Pro monitoring, keep an eye out. We're going to have some big announcements coming out of that, hopefully within the next few weeks. Newer equipment, for those of you that were at the experience, I did have one of the doctor kits with me, the brand new system, and it's pretty sleek looking, completely different look and aspect and functionality from the older equipment. And the biggest change that you're going to see if you're familiar with any of the equipment is simplicity. It's really been designed about one button work. That's it, and then you go from there. So keep that in mind. I was trying to think if there's anything else. Guys, I see Mike and Tim in the room. Do you have any comments on that? Anything you wanted to say?
I want to include, I'm going to follow up on what you said. I saw the monitor there in Florida a couple of weeks ago at the experience, and I'm telling you, it is amazing. So those of you out there that were in the beta test group, stay tuned. You're really going to be excited about the new monitors. And those of you who weren't in that, be prepared, because it's a really, really big deal. Doctors' offices are really getting on board. They like to monitor what's going on in their offices. And with the new systems, you can provide them with an answer.
Absolutely. And like Gavin kept saying, you need to have statistical data. You need to know baselines. You need to know if you're actually improving, again, what you can't see. And that's really what's been hampering this industry for so many years. Again, people see the dirty glass of water, they're not going to drink it. They're going to say, something's wrong, let's fix this. They don't see that in their indoor air quality. We're dealing with microscopic organisms, particulates that you cannot see, but they affect your health. They affect the environments you live in. They affect your property. You know, when you see the mold growing on the wall, it's kind of too late. And, you know, one of the favorite questions I get from people when I do an assessment, they'll say, is that mold on the wall good or bad mold? And without giving them a hard time, the follow-up question I have is, do you want it there? Well, no, of course, then it's bad. Obviously, it's a microbial growth on your wall. It doesn't belong there. It could be caused by humidity problems. There's a whole host of things that could cause it. But the idea is being able to not see something doesn't mean there isn't a problem. And the monitors and all this other technology and training that's out there does make a difference. So thank you, Mike. Appreciated that. Tim, anything? Not trying to put you on the spot, just throwing it out there.
No, and obviously the CDC is probably not thinking about this. It's just not that common, but there's a huge role to play for proactive air purification. They talk about filtration and air exchanges and fresh air, which is all important. But we also know that there's another 2/3 of the air that's not addressed when we don't talk about proactive air purification. And so that's something to keep in mind to supplement those things that they're talking about.
Oh, you're absolutely right. But, you know, at this point, for a government entity acknowledging there's indoor air quality issues, we need to take action. We need to do things, whatever things are, because truthfully, they're not the experts on the things. They're the experts saying, hey, we know there's a problem. Something's got to be done. And they're recognizing that now. And now they're turning to the industry experts, like the people that were just on the panel and other groups that do training, to really push this forward. All right. Well, thank you guys for that. I hope everybody was able to enjoy that, or at least listen to it.
I think we have a raised hand there, Lance, from Normie Pro Academy.
Well, let's see. Well, Academy, your mic is hot if you want to try talking.
Hey guys, I just wanted to jump in and say hello.
Ah,
How you doing
hello,
there, Doug?
I'm good.
Well, Doug Hoffman, our executive director, is down with the class in Fort Lauderdale in our Sunrise Academy right now. And I guess they either took a break or just finished. So I'm glad to see you popping in the room.
Yeah, just finished. Just thought I'd drop in and say hello. Hope everybody's doing well.
All right. Well, thank you. Actually, if you want to hang around a little, we're going to talk a few minutes about some of the classes coming up for some clarification on some the way that people sign up, if you want to hang out for that.
Absolutely. Glad to.
All right. Well, I'm going to shift over to the next thing that we're going to talk about. And we have a lot of classes coming up. And again, this is something that's general information for everybody listening on all the platforms. Indoor air quality is a thing, no question about it. Mold assessment, mold remediation, flooding, chemical sensitivities, all of this stuff affects our daily lives. Now, we're not doctors, we don't fix people, but we do teach you how to fix buildings and the environments that you're in. And when you're in a healthier environment, your immune system isn't taxed as much, it's easier for it to be healthy about other things. It's all positive, proactive movement. So with that being said, some of the classes that we have coming up, and I want to mention two of them specifically, the NCRSI, which is the Normie certified, I just drew a blank on it, Tim. It's
Mediation for sensitized individuals.
correct. I wanted to get you in there. Thank you for that. And the other class is the CMP, which is the, come on, Tim.
Normis Certified Microbial Professional.
Well, it's just a test that we have going here. But what's going on with that is we have a class coming up, and you can find all of our classes at either training.normie.org or besttrainingschool.com. And the NCRSI class is really designed for remediators that deal with sensitized individuals. And as they mentioned in that last segment, that's almost 20% of the population right now, people that are really considered sensitized. And it may be higher. We can only report on information that we're able to gather. So it's probably a higher number. But think about that. If you walk down your street and you pass, what, 5 houses? One of those houses has sensitized individuals in it, if I got that right. In any case, there's a lot of people out there that it affects. So the NCRSI class is a 2-day class, and you'll find it on our website. And it deals with the remediation process and very specifically about dealing with sensitized individuals. The other class, the CMP, is normally a 3-day class, which covers the information from the NCRSI class. It also goes into detailed explanations about, and I have some notes here because I wanted to have answers for people before they raise their hand and ask questions. It really deals with the cleaning aspects that are different from residential to commercial. There's a lot more dialogue in the CMP class about the commercial side. And that has a lot to do with the size of the building, the difference between fresh air intake, fresh air makeup. Residential properties don't have that. Commercial properties are required to by building codes. It also teaches you how to develop your own checklists for how to go through dealing with sensitized individuals based on the location throughout the country or world that you're located in. Obviously, dealing with an indoor air quality in Fargo, North Dakota is very different than dealing with it in Key West or in New Orleans or out in California. So completely different regions, different weather patterns, different building codes all play into this. And a lot of this is what's discussed in the CMP class. So documentation of the work that you do is something that's also extremely important, that's covered a lot heavier in the CMP class. So the reason I'm explaining these two classes together is we have quite a few people that have already taken the NCRSI class that want to take the CMP class. So in order to avoid them having to repeat all 3 days or go through all 3 days, we've made it where if you've taken and passed the NCRSI class, you can sign up for just the CMP class. When you're on our website, just pay the deposit. That'll guarantee your seat for the CMP on that 3rd day. And then we will contact you and make all the other arrangements to get you into that 1-day class and complete the CMP training. If you want to take just the NCRSI class, you can do that. Or you can take the 3-day CMP class. It's all up to you. It's your choice, whatever's going to work best for your timeline and training needs. Now, Tim, I know we do have a bunch of other classes out there besides these. I don't know if you want to mention a few of those real quick.
Yeah, I do. There are a couple that I want to highlight, or a few that I want to highlight. Again, we've got as Doug is, you can see right now in the class that's going on currently, first day of our CMA/CMR class in Sunrise, Florida. We have another one of those classes coming up in July 25th through the 27th. But a couple of classes I want to really highlight, and that is in August 16th and 17th, is a 2-day CMW, or Certified Mold Worker class, and that is in Spanish. And that's a real important class because that's really the people who are doing the work. It's a hands-on class, a lot of hands-on training for people who are on the remediation project, in the containment, doing the work. And I think it is serving a very underserved community, and that is our Hispanic community in South Florida. And so that class is in Spanish in our Sunrise location, and that is August 16th and 17th at the Fort Lauderdale or Sunrise location. And the other class I want to highlight is the Texas CMR class that we're going to be doing at the end of August through September 1st. Texas CMR class. It's a long class. It's a 5-day class, but you can get able then from that class to be licensed or certified in Texas, Louisiana, DC, Florida. All of those can be from that. You would just have to take an additional module to get each of those individual states, but all 4 of those licenses can be gotten through that Texas CMR class. Now that's a small classroom. I think it's a pretty limited size. So you want to make sure if you're interested in that and you're in that area to get signed up for it quickly. But that is, again, the last full week in August through the very 1st of September. So take a look again, as Lance said, at training.normie.org or at besttrainingschool.com. You'll see our schedules there.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. I just want to mention again to all of the people that are watching on the social media platforms, Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Kick, all the other ones, that we will be shutting this feed down shortly. So if you are an active Normie member and you want to take part in the product training that we do have coming up, you're going to have to go to impact.normie.org to get into our Zoom room. Obviously, you're going to have to be a Normie member, otherwise it's not going to let you in. You won't be able to get to that link, but hopefully you will join us there and take part in some of the technology training we're going to be doing right after this. Doug, I didn't want to exclude you. Was there any follow-up you wanted to throw in there? Just remember your video is off.
Yeah, I would just add one thing on the NCMP class. One of the things that Michael Pinto and I wanted to do was to spend some time talking about the rebuild. In other words, if you're dealing with sensitized individuals, especially, one of the most important things you can do is make sure that you've got a cleaner environment, a built environment that's healthier, cleaner, safer. And so it definitely is going to be, we're going to be discussing in detail exactly how to make that happen. And the other thing I was going to share, Lance, is that we've got a brand new sampling device that we're looking at that we'll probably introduce next week. For mycotoxins. So we're going to definitely talk about the Air Answers device, but this other new device, which comes from Australia, is really, really fantastic looking. So we're going to be talking about it as well. So a lot of new technology and a lot of new ideas, and carrying through the discussion that we always have is not just about fixing a problem, but it's making sure the problem doesn't come back.
Thank you, Doug. All right, well, I just want to close it out with one of our Normie words, Yasny. You ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, for those of you that have been around for a while, we've been saying that, and we keep coming out with new things, new trainings, new technology, and we try to bring that to our members constantly. So hang in there. There'll be some more stuff coming real shortly. Again, I want to do a special thank you for everybody on the Kick.com network. We just added those guys over the weekend. So we're yeah, I'm getting tongue-tied here. We're broadcasting out there also. So I think we're on 12 plus platforms now, and we will be adding some more as soon as they become available through our shared networks. Keep an eye out on the podcasts. We're working on adding more podcast platforms. We have 8 right now, and there'll be more in the very near future. For those of you on all the other platforms, thank you for joining us. We're going to be shutting the public feed down now and probably starting up our regular programming there within a few minutes. So if you want to catch more of the Normie stuff, hang out. You'll see what's coming up next. And I'm looking up and it looks like it's training on flooding we'll be playing. So hang on, everybody. I want to shut that feed down and I will be right back here in the Zoom room for our member training.